Well, hello and welcome to APS Stamp Chat. I'm Heidi Rhodes. As collectors, we know that there are myriad ways of examining a stamp or cover. From the technical aspects to the cultural implications, they offer countless opportunities for study and learning. Today's presentation of the scarce postal rate of 6¼ cents is one of those unusual stamp stories that provide deeper context in American history. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our two highly acclaimed speakers, Ms. Jasmine Smith and Mr. Bill Schultz. Ms. Smith is a postal collectible restorer and librarian. Her library and archives background includes digital collection management, which she applies to capturing, cataloging, and analyzing postal history data for census and book projects. Mr. Schultz is a nationally accredited chief judge, a longtime member of the APS, and many other philatelic societies and organizations. He is an author, curator, and he is the founder of the Philatelic Gathering Group. Today's Stamp Chat is sponsored by the APS Expertising Department. Founded in 1903, it remains a relevant service we offer members and non-members alike. If you have stamps or covers in your collection that you want to learn more about, then the Expertising service has the answer. Submit a few items from your collection and Apex will confirm their identity and their authenticity. We are the only authority that offers a complete guarantee. Visit stamps.org to begin your cert process. And on that note, it is my pleasure to welcome our esteemed guests, Jasmine and Bill. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. We're very happy to be here tonight, Jasmine and I. We've been working together on this project for a little more than a year. Doesn't seem possible, but it's been probably 15 or 16 months. To give you a little background on the 6¼ cent rate, I had an exhibit, which I still have, that had two 6¼ cent rate covers in it. And I didn't pay a lot of attention to those and didn't give it a lot of thought. And one day I was thinking, boy, it would be nice to know what the census is on the 6¼ cent rate population out there of the covers. I guessed that there wasn't many. To be honest with you, I thought there might be less than 10. Then I said, well, maybe it'll be 15, but I doubt if there's 20. I've been looking for 6¼ cent rate covers for a long time. I only found two, and that's over a long time. I don't want to tell you the number of years, but let's say 25 plus. So I said, okay, how am I going to figure this out? Well, I need to do a census. And I convinced Jasmine, we were working on a number of projects together, that maybe we could pull together a census and then publish it. It would be an important document for the postal historians and the philatelists in the country and around the world to have a grip on what the 6¼ cent rate is. So let me discuss what it is. In 1816, there was a rate created by the Postal Service of 6 cents for a single sheet letter for 30 miles or less, short distance, low weight, and therefore it was a very good bargain if you think of it, but 6 cents was a fair amount of money in 1816. Then, starting around 1824, the 6¼ cent rate, though not published and not approved, covers started to be used with the 6¼ cent rate on them. And what was amazing was it was an unofficial rate. It wasn't recognized. But all of a sudden, postmasters from a number of states, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, started using the 6¼ Where did the 6¼ rate come from? Well, it's a bit. Think of it as a Spanish silver coin. Think of it as 8 bits. Remember 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, 8 bits, a dollar? Well, that's a bit. A bit is really 12½ cents. And what they would do back then, because currency was scarce and real good currency was real scarce, particularly in the panic of 1837 time period, they would actually take the coin and divide it up. The coin, in a way, was easily divided because there was a sunburst on one side with rays of the sun evenly, making it very easy to cut up into slices of bits. A half a bit, if you will, is 6 1/4. One bit, 12 and a half, 2 bits, 25 cents. So do your math, 6 1/4 is half a bit. People were walking around in 1825, 1830, etc., with slices of the Spanish coin in their pocket, the Spanish silver real. What's not told to you in your history books that we all grew up with reading was that the Spanish currency from about 1820 to about 1845 was truly one of the key, if not key, currencies of hard currency in the United States. The shin plasters and the greenbacks were not easily accepted, and certainly people wanted hard currency. So the Spanish silver coin, the real, became useful to people not only in southern states where you might think it would be popular due to, say, Spain and Florida or the Spanish influence in Texas, and that was one of our working assumptions. We bet that a lot of these covers, if we found them, were going to be from Florida or Texas or Louisiana. That turned out not to be so true. We were misguided on that as well. So as we went forward, we determined that there's more of these 6 1/4 rates out there than we ever anticipated. And to not hold you in suspense any longer, we have found 97 of them so far, with the help of about 30 different postal historians have submitted to us scans and information on their 6 1/4 rate covers. I was amazed that we got to that number. I'll be frank. I never, ever expected to get to 97 so far, and we're still counting. And as we give these seminars around the country, and we're scheduled for a few more, I can honestly say it generates more interest and more covers showed up. Jasmine and I did a seminar a few weeks ago, and lo and behold, another cover showed up from the great state of Iowa, of all places. And we're not surprised by that. We used a phrase, I'll paraphrase Jasmine in this, they're going to trickle in now. And that's what they're doing. They're trickling in as we give the talk. I expect we'll break 100 sometime in the next 12 months, if not sooner. We also stumbled on 6 1/4 cent rate bank demand notes, also known in the vernacular of the coin and currency collectors, obsolete currency. And we have found 35 6 1/4 cent rate demand notes or bank notes or shin plasters, whatever you like to call them, from a variety of banks and institutions. One from the post office from Tallahassee, Florida, where the postmaster said, I can sell 6 1/4 cent rate currency to help sell my 6 1/4 cent rate covers. So that's the only one we found from a post office so far where they match up. Unfortunately, when we started pulling together the 6 1/4 cent bank demand notes, we thought there'd be more matching up of the 97 covers that slowly occurred. That's not been true. Only one. There's a cover from Tallahassee and there's a banknote from Tallahassee. That's the only match so far. So if you want to count disappointments, I would put that in the disappointment column. We thought there'd be more matchups of the currency and the actual covers. Jasmine, show me the next one, please. I act like she's my assistant. She's actually my boss. So we've created a website, and as you can see on your screen, it's 6 and A, got to get the A in there, folks, 6 and a quarter census.omeka.net. You can go online, it's free, you can bring up this website. Jasmine has created it. Trust me, there's no chance of me doing it. And I can tell you it's a wonderful website. It's easy to use, and it's the work that Jasmine has done on this it's a masterpiece. Uh, I'm thrilled that we were able to create this website, and I'm thrilled that we can offer it for free. Here's one of the first pages of the website, and we'll show you some examples from the website tonight. We're not going to show you all 97 tonight. We want to leave time for questions and conversation. But we keep adding items and we keep finding items. And one of the ones that I like is the hand stamp 6 1/4 from Hales Express from New York. This is a lovely cover. Okay. You go back to the one there. Thank you. This is forwarded from Belleville, Illinois to Lewiston, Illinois. But you can see the 6 1/4 making up the 25-cent rate from 18 3/4. That 3 is 3/4. So we were lucky enough to find one or two of these forwarding where it helped make up the rate. But we're counting these as 6 1/4 cent rate because there's the 6 1/4 boldly on this cover from Illinois. Notice the double circle CDS on the left, and it was dated in 1838, which offers me the opportunity to say we have not found any covers in the United States of 6 1/4 cent rate prior to 1824. I think they're out there. In theory, they could exist from 1816, matching up the 6-cent rate to 1824, but I'm up front with you. We haven't found anything prior to 1824. They should have disappeared in 1845 when the rates went to 5 cents and 10 cents, as you're all aware. So the 6-cent rate went away. Therefore, the 6 1/4 cent rate should go away as well in 1845. We have found none post 1845. It's possible there's one out there, but I kind of doubt it. People don't normally want to overpay for their postage. That's still true today. Nobody likes to pay more than they have to. So why would they pay 6 1/4 for 5 cents? But they did pay 6 1/4 for 6 cents, which is a little more palatable for most people. But be reminded, they had the 6 1/4 cent rate in their pocket when they went to pick up the letter, or if they prepaid it when they mailed it. Most of the covers went, as we would call it, COD in that time period, and the receiver paid for the letter when picked up. Jasmine? There's a lovely cover from Franklin, Louisiana. We expected to see some covers from Louisiana, Texas, and Florida, and to some extent we have found those. But it's the state that has produced the most for our census of 6 1/4 cent rate, much to our shock, and I use the word shock with no hesitation, is Ohio. And then Pennsylvania, and Michigan has a bunch, and New York has a bunch. So it wasn't a southern phenomena related to the 6 1/4. It really, to a great extent, was a northern phenomena, certainly a middle Atlantic, if you count Ohio as middle Atlantic, and I think they would argue that, the people in Ohio. This is a lovely, earliest one we have, I believe, of 1824. This is from my collection. And as you can see, the 6 1/4 is clearly marked on the face of this cover. And I'll be honest with you, it's a wonderful item. And not surprisingly from Louisiana. Jasmine? Thank you. This one is from Lewis, Delaware. Across the Delaware Bay from Cape May, New Jersey is Lewis, Delaware. Delaware's tiny state, 3 counties. This is a beautiful cover, clearly marked 6 1/4. Went to Georgetown in Delaware from Lewis, which is a port, if you will, on the Delaware Bay. Lovely place to visit, by the way, if you've never been there. It's a great place. Wonderful restaurants, beautiful beach, wonderful place to spend a holiday once we're allowed. This one was submitted to us by Alfredo Frolich. He has 2 6 1/4 cent rates, in his Delaware exhibit, which did win the Grand Award in Westpex last year when we were still doing stamp shows in person. It's a wonderful collection of Delaware, and he does have two great 6 1/4 cent rate covers. I knew of those two. I also knew of my two, so I was up to four. And I said, well, maybe I'll get to 10 or 15. Well, we flew past 10 and 15, and we got to 97. This is another one from Alfredo Foliage, who lives in Miami, 6 1/4 cent paid. So it was prepaid, 6 1/4 from Concord, which is just outside of Wilmington, Delaware, to Milford, Delaware. Milford, Delaware is famous today, folks, for one thing. They probably don't want me to say this. It's where a lot of scrapple is made. Jasmine? This is a cover submitted to us by the infamous or famous Richard Fredrola, dealer and wonderful collector and a great exhibitor, 6 1/4 cent rate from Ohio in the 1827 era. This is a great cover. The 6 1/4 was paid in advance, and it went from Ohio to Marietta, Ohio. Just a beautiful cover. I love this one. I love the manuscript postmark. 95% of the covers for the 6 1/4 cent rate have the manuscript non-hand stamp markings. Common for the time period and not unexpected. So we're always excited if we get a hand stamp, either circular date stamp or straight line. Jasmine? Here's a Toledo submitted by the famous Dave Plunkett of Toledo. Wonderful exhibitor, wonderful collector. He submitted this one to us. This also helps make up the rate, but this time it went for 18 3/4, and then it was marked undercharged, and they added the 6 1/4. Great markings from Toledo, the home of the Mud Hens baseball team, made famous by MASH, by the way. Klinger. Lockport, Illinois was the town that received it. Wonderful cover, beautiful, and Dave was kind enough to share this with us. This is a fairly late use of April 1845 of the 6 1/4 cent rate. Jasmine? This is one of my favorite covers. This is the one I mentioned ahead of time with the Tallahassee markings submitted by Thomas Lear, used to work at the National Postal Museum. He submitted this one with a wonderful forwarded marking, nice markings, nice circular date stamps, a wonderful oval. I always love ovals. Tallahassee, Florida cover, just great markings, 6 1/4, pretty early, 1831. Wonderful, wonderful cover. Very happy to have this in the Census. Guys? This is a nice simple cover, 6 1/4, marked in the upper right. Early though, we think from January of 1831, from Fort Defiance, North Carolina. This is submitted by a great postal historian from that area, Tony Crumley. Tony's been very cooperative in this project, and we're very pleased to have a few items in the Census from Tony. This went from Fort Defiance to Wilkesboro. If you're a NASCAR fan, you all know where Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Jasmine? Okay, we're going to jump ahead here to the banknotes. We have a few to show you tonight. This is a 6 1/4. It's from the City Hotel in Baltimore, Maryland. It's a banking business 6 1/4. This was issued because they didn't have a lot of faith in the normal currency. And was it issued for just postage? The answer is no. We don't think the 6 1/4 banknotes, except for the Tallahassee one, were issued just with an intention of paying for postage. There were other things that you could buy with 6 1/4 cent postage rates, and we have a few of those in the Census that actually show what the purchasing power was. 6 1/4 cents in 1837 was a lot of money. You could buy a lot of things in 1837 for 6 1/4. And we lose sight of that when we see 6 cents. Jasmine?
Well, this one, before we move on, is one of those that has an alternate purpose to it, and it is 6 1/4 cents in mint juleps. We're not sure how many juleps one might enjoy for 6 1/4 cents, but it's just sort of a fun and unexpected currency and rate for such an item.
You have to love the in mint juleps in manuscript. This one is from Bob Meegan of the Buffalo, New York, Jamestown, New York area. Bob also submitted a few of the covers as well. We had 30 people submit covers, and we had 10 or 15 people submit the banknotes. This one is from Philadelphia, and it's a banking one, and issued in 1815. So this is right before the 6-cent rate took effect for the 30 miles and under single sheet letter. So this is a really nice item to have in the census. You could think of this almost as a forerunner of the 6 1/4 banknotes. Jasmine? Okay, that ends our PowerPoint presentation. We tried to give you a taste of the covers and the banknotes. Jasmine, would you like to add any comments?
Well, Bill, if there's anything else you want to show off, I can navigate to the website itself and pull something up.
Let's show 1 or 2 more of the covers.
All right, let me
You pick.
swap over here. So we've got our collections and covers on here. I can browse collections and go to postal covers. And there's our 97. And if I sort them by title, then they will display, we've named them such that they'll show up in chronological order by state. So as you would scroll through, you'd see alphabetical states and then by date from there. So that should hopefully make it easy for people to discover if there are covers from whatever particular region they're interested in, and then have those organized in an accessible way. Is there any particular state or date you want me to go for, Bill?
Yeah, pick up the latest one from Iowa, the turn cover, please.
That
Remind me to say please.
is going to be right here.
This is, I think, our most recent addition to the census. This just surfaced after our last talk. This is an incredible, for those of you that love turn covers, where the letter was used twice to save on paper and to sort of recycle. But what's great about this one, it's 6 1/4 in both directions. This was a great find, submitted to us just in the last 2 weeks. Overwhelmed with excitement about this one from Jim Leonardo via Jim Patterson. So the two of them we should probably give credit to. It went from in Iowa to Iowa, and then it was returned, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful piece. I never expected to see a double return covered rate 6 1/4. That's a real shocker and surprise, and pleasant surprise for postal historians. So I'm thrilled to see this one. Never expected to see it. We have so far found covers submitted to us from 23 different states. That's surprising to us. I really thought it was going to be 5 or 6 selected states, and it turned out that wasn't true. It's spread out over 23 states. Now, a lot of the states only have 1 or 2. As you would imagine, but like Delaware has 2, Florida has a handful, Pennsylvania has a sizable number, but Ohio leads the pack, and we're just amazed by that. There is some discussion led by Ed Siskin, famous postal historian from New Jersey. Ed has a theory, and it's probably accurate, knowing Ed, that the Michigan, Ohio area has 6 1/4 rates, but not necessarily from the Spanish silver coin, possibly from coins that came across the Canadian border to northern Ohio and northern Michigan. We're working on that theory. We haven't stated that in the census yet, but it's looking like there might be a connection to either Quebec or Ontario coinage during that time period. So the website's easy to use. Jasmine's made it easy for all of us to use this. It's free, so make use of it, share it with friends, and it's an interesting subject. Nobody else has ever done a census of the 6 1/4 rate before, and we're pleased to present it to you. We're taking this PowerPoint show on the road, and we're giving it to various stamp clubs around the United States, 1 or 2 per month. I would do 5 or 6 a month, but Jasmine says no. So we're down to 1 or 2 per month for the next 5 months or so. So look for it in your local town. We're coming to town. Jasmine, you want to add anything before we open it up?
Well, I would say let's open it up to questions and see what people would like to know. We can continue with the screen share as we go, and I can navigate around if there are specific questions, or Bill can talk more about the rate and the history and all of that information surrounding the 6 1/4.
Jasmine, could you put up before we jump out? Let's show the list of acknowledgements.
Sure.
I think they should get some credit on the screen. We have 2 lists we included in the census. The top list, the top 21 names there, I guess, is people that encouraged us to do this and helped us, and we're very supportive. The next block right below that is 30 people who actually have submitted covers, 1 or more, sometimes 4 or 5, to help us try to accomplish what's the universal total of the 6 1/4 cent rate stampless covers. I don't think we found them all. I'd be naive to suggest that we have. I think there's more out there. I don't think there's that many more, but I've been wrong on a number of my guesses regarding this project for the last 15 months. So I've learned to say, well, I just don't know. We'll find out how many more are going to trickle in, as Jasmine says. So Jasmine, and Heidi, can we open it up?
Yeah.
We certainly can. So starting with, well, Tom Bowman would like to share that I guess you'll be giving the talk on August 3rd at the Wyoming Valley Stamp Club.
Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Wonderful. So I know that our executive director has now seen it 3 times. So this is one to definitely see multiple times.
And it's a little different every time.
I make things up.
You're the master. You can do that.
Yeah. I'll make one up.
We have a friend who's asking, do you believe in the mint juleps was added by someone later?
No, I don't. I can't prove that, but it's doubtful. There's the handwriting looks authentic. It looks like from a fountain pen of that time era. If I were to expertise that banknote, I would lean towards, I think that's a legitimate type of ink and type of paper from that time period. We haven't had it expertised, but it's something we could talk about. Jasmine's an expert on such matters, and I can honestly say we think it's real. We do. I'd sign my name to it that it's real.
This is another transcription of a banknote where you can see that it's offering a general assortment of groceries. So the mint juleps are not the only banknote where some sort of good has been promised to the bearer. And you can see chest of tea and hogshead as listed in the middle area there. So if a chest of tea and a hogshead could be offered for 6 1/4 cents, and this is obviously over 20 years difference. I believe the mint juleps are 1837. You know, why not mint juleps for a 6 1/4 cent note?
And it doesn't say how many mint juleps.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys were how have you been able to cull this information in? Did you get word out to postal historians, or how have you been able to get your build the census?
Well, we took it upon ourselves to think of everybody that we could think of. Probably sent out, I'm going to guess we sent out 250 different personalized emails to 250 postal historians that I believe might have one. Now, we also have taken the show on the road, and that's surfaced a few more, which we expected. I think as we roll out a few more talks and a few more, we're giving a talk in Texas, we're giving another one in Pennsylvania. I think we have another one in Ohio coming up. So as we circulate and reach more and more people, I think that more will surface, but I think the trickle will slowly really trickle down. But I found, I put faith in the fact that the postal historians would respond. You know what was interesting? When I first sent out this 250 personalized emails, I got responses back from some great, great postal historians that said things like, I've never seen one. I've never heard of it. So I started to go, whoa, it's not going to be a very big list. For some heavy hitters, I'm not going to name names, but some big hitters said, hey, I've never seen one. I don't have any. So I said, oh, this could get real exciting now. So that's when I knew the list wasn't going to be real big. But then, as the word went out, people responded. And they responded very nicely. We've rejected a few, by the way, of interest. I think we rejected 2, maybe, that we said, no, it's not really 6 1/4. It sort of could be, maybe, but we don't think it's really 6 1/4. There's one where the ink came through from the other page, a little misleading. So we like to think that we're trying to make it as legit of a census as we possibly can. We've taken one out, is that right, Jasmine? That we had in?
Yes.
Yes, we've removed one because we concluded that it doesn't quite fit it, so we're taking it out. So we're very, Jasmine's very discerning.
Well, Bill, we've got a couple of questions in the Q&A, and 2 are closely related. So I'm going to start with those 2. The first one is that the questioner has come across a number of 18 3/4 rated items, assuming those are more common, and wondered if you had any thoughts regarding trends or volumes of 18 3/4 covers.
Right. Yeah, I get this question on this a few times, and I understand the question. You could also fit in the same answer to the 12 1/2 cent rate. There was a 6 cent rate, there was a 12 1/2 cent rate, there was an 18 3/4 cent rate. They were for greater, the 12 1/2 were for either more pages or a longer distance, and the 18 3/4 cent rate, the same answer, longer distance and or greater number of pages. Basically, we've concluded that the 6 1/4 was only used by postmasters sending or receiving to replace the 6 cent rate. We have no proof and no indication that it was for multiple pages or longer distances. We don't believe that yet. Now, something might surface that changes our mind. We're open to it. But I don't find that when I look at a cover that was mailed 80 miles, And we check the mileage very carefully. It has to be under 30 miles to be replacing the 6-cent rate. And that 30-mile thing was in effect from 1816 to 1845. So we had a consistent 6-cent rate for the short distance. So it allows us to be fairly comfortable that if it went more than 30 miles, it's not a multiple of the 6.5 or the 6.25 rate. It's the correct 12.5, and the more prevalent, larger rate of 18 3/4, which is a pretty prevalent rate for the time period. I hope that answered the question.
I think you've covered both of them there, Bill. So some other questions we have. One is about 6.25 cent hand stamps, and we actually have some stamped covers in the census. So I'm going to pull the two examples that come to mind up as a share.
I think we have 2 or 3. I think.
So there is, I believe this is Bill's favorite.
It is. I love this because it's so bold, the 6.25. This is a hand stamp, Hales Express out of New York City. One could say it's not the same as a postmaster because it's a private express company. And that's true, but we never said we weren't going to include private express companies. We were including the 6.25. And I don't really care, and this could bother some postal historians, I don't really care if it's a government 6.25 or a private express 6.25. It's still, in my mind, it's 6.25. And you can't mistake this cover for anything else but 6.25. This is another private express one, came to us from the infamous Charles Tacoma of Lancaster, PA. And this is a collect 6.25, also from New York, private carrier to Albany, from New York to Albany. And this was a private letter, private express as well, not a government post office. So it's a little different, but I'm counting all 6.25 until somebody convinces me otherwise. And I could be convinced. It's an argument. There's great postal historians that say the private express companies shouldn't be in the census, but those 6.25 hand stamps are so lovely that it's tempting to leave it. It's like chocolate ice cream, you know, chocolate cake.
One of our questions is since 6.25 cents is a half a bit,
Yes.
were these mostly sold in multiples of 2, or did a half bit piece of the Spanish dollar actually get used?
Now, it's pretty evident to us, and we've seen examples of it. The 6.25 cent was a bit, the 12.5 is a bit. They cut them in eighths, and then they cut them again, sliced them. They actually took the time to cut the coins, which is pretty, we wouldn't even think about that today. But that's what they did back then because currency was so scarce, and hard currency, as in silver, was very much sought after because they didn't trust the paper currency of the country. So no, these are real coins. They're slices. They look like pieces of a pie. Think of it as a piece of pie. So, yeah.
And the 6.25 cent piece, or a half a bit, was also called a picayune. And you're probably familiar with the word picayune. It means something small. And a 6.25 cent piece would have been a pretty small fragment, but in New Orleans, you could buy the Times Picayune with a picayune. So it was a real and used rate. I don't know how common it would be compared to other things, but it was not so rare that you could only do 6.25 rates in pairs or anything like that. Bill believes that customers in certain areas would have a 6.25 cent coin piece on them, and that the postmaster would, rather than trying to make or remove or do something odd to try to vanish a 1/4 cent, would write the 6 1/4 to keep their books balanced. So it's a rate of convenience. And Bill, you can go into more detail on that as you are the expert. But
Well, I think Jasmine just described it very well. I worked in my retirement. I took a part-time job as a postmaster of a tiny post office for 2.5 years. And trust me, those postmaster positions are absolutely preoccupied with balancing the books every day. I mean, preoccupied. And I can guarantee you they were probably preoccupied in 1835 as well. I've seen the records, I've seen old documents, I've seen old postmaster journals, books. They were very exact. And I think the recording of the 6 1/4 was strictly the fact that the postmaster, let's talk about, he received the 6 1/4, therefore, hence, he was going to record the 6 1/4. He wouldn't take in 6 1/4 and write down 6. He'd be out of balance. And that would have been a no-no to any postmaster almost at any time. I don't know if they're still that exact in the world of the post office, but trust me, they are very exact in the handling of cash and balancing the books. Any other questions?
Would you call it a rate or a receipt for payment?
It depends upon how, good question. It depends, it's not a rate because the rate is 6 cents. You could make a case, it's an overpayment of a 6-cent rate. That's the best definition. So there was no printed or recognized 6 1/4 cent rate. So when I say rate, I'm using the word rate loosely because that's the rate on the cover. But the truth is, it's an overpayment of the 6-cent rate for the 30-mile distance or less. That's what it is, either prepaid or upon receipt. Most of the letters of that time period went COD, as we would call it. We have examples of both in the census, but it's an overpayment, and then therefore it's a balancing of the books, I think. That's my theory. And
if anybody has information that confirms or disproves that theory, I think we'd both be very curious.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? I think we've answered everything that we've gotten so far.
Did we finish on Fred Lawrence's question with the hand stamps, where they were used and how frequently seen?
Yeah, because I know Fred so well, and he's a wonderful judge and a good friend. It's always a pleasure to judge with Fred. I probably should elaborate just for a second on that. The hand stamps are pretty much used on the express mail companies, the private express companies, not so much from the post offices, but that's normal for the time period. The manuscript markings of 6 1/4, one would expect those to be way, way more prevalent than some fancy hand stamp that a postmaster had to purchase the hand stamp or make it, but that's not easy. So the 6 1/4 manuscript rate non-hand stamp is probably 93 or 4 out of the 97 covers that we have so far. And that's not surprising, not surprising. That's a good question.
Well, where would one be looking for these covers?
Well, you know, I think if there's postal historians out there that have boxes of stuff, and they're stamp collectors, they have stuff, we call it good stuff. Look in the good stuff boxes, and lo and behold, they may be there. I also think I've asked, not only did I ask great postal historians for their 6 1/4, I also sent emails to every postal history dealer listed with the APS and the ASDA. And the responses back from the dealers overwhelmingly said things like, never had one, never seen one. So they're going to be scarce. I mean, think about it. Even though I'm saying, oh, I thought there was going to be 10 or 15 of them, and there's 97, that's sort of misleading. There's 97 out of millions of covers that are out there, and that's it so far. So it's a small group. Now the good news is when I started with my two, I thought they were very valuable. I wanted there to be less than 10, you know, from a greed perspective, you know. Well, when we get to 97, I can't say in my exhibit, well, one of 97. It doesn't have the same cachet as 1 out of 5. So I'm thrilled that Jasmine and I have been able to accumulate the 97, but I'm also, as a philatelist and an exhibitor, I'm disappointed there's 97. I wanted there to be 5 or 10. That's it. You know, 5 would have been great. You know, I started with 4. My 2 and Froelich's 2. So that was 4. And I was hoping they were the only 4. But no, that didn't happen.
And and it'll be interesting to see how many more that you get. And now, have you had a presentation and then afterwards one appears?
Yes, it almost always happens. It could happen tonight. It almost always happens because they go back to those good stuff boxes and find somebody goes, hey, we've also, you know, we've been sent ones that didn't qualify to make it into the census. And, you know, Jasmine acts as the judge and says, no, it's not, we reject that one. But we've only rejected a couple. And I think people will find them. We've gotten some from the UK.
Oh.
Much to our, you know, so it's stuff's rolling in, you know, it's amazing. Not used in the UK, but a collector in the UK sent us some examples of some banknotes, etc. We found 35 banknotes of a 6 1/4, and I'd like to say this. I want everybody to know that the 6 1/4 cent rate covers aren't going to be cheap if you find one, if you want to buy one. They're not off the charts expensive. But I will tell you this, the obsolete currency of those 35 banknotes that we include cost way more than the covers.
Bill, we've got a question about this cover specifically,
Yeah.
pointing out that New York City and Albany are more like 100 miles apart than under 30.
That's correct.
So,
but it's a private express who carried it for 6 1/4. So I included it as a legitimate private express 6 1/4 cover. Yes, it's more than 30 miles, probably 150 miles, but it's an express company 6 1/4, clearly in the upper right in that fancy box, and you gotta love that box, that nice rectangle, very philatelic looking. 6 1/4, I wanted to include it. Someday, I probably could be talked into removing this cover from the census, but for right now, I'd like it to stay in. I love the rectangle in the upper right, and I recognize it's not a government-issued 6 1/4 rate.
and that may be an opportunity to just, you know, from my perspective, as the librarian of the team, to improve my metadata for this cover and maybe include in the description that it's larger mileage but a private express rate.
That would be good.
Just,
Okay.
you know, for
Yep.
people who have questions in the future, other eagle-eyed city location spotters.
Yeah.
And then did we cover the other aspect of the question here, Jasmine?
And then it says, are there markings from New York City to Albany on that cover from the post office?
The answer is no. No.
Have you, I'm curious, do you talk with Numatics, or, you know, is there any sort of interest from our brothers and sisters of that hobby?
I tend to avoid them.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I'm kidding. The two hobbies, while some people think of it as stamps and coins, some of us don't see the linkage as well. And I think it was a little controversial for us to include the banknotes in this census. I do. But I wanted to include them partially because I wanted to see if we could match them up. At Tallahassee matching up at the Tallahassee postmaster issuing his own currency. I found that to be fascinating. He's selling his own currency to help sell postage. So I I hope there'll be more of those, but so far just one. There hasn't been any other matchups. So keep hoping. Hope springs eternal on this stuff.
It does. To go from 2 covers to 97 is really
It's
out.
fun. It's fun. Jasmine and I have had a good time with it. Or I have. I don't know. Maybe Jasmine hates it. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm
You
having a
guys are
good
pretty
time.
responsive about getting on a show, so I think that you enjoy it very much.
She's becoming a good postal historian.
Well, I think all of our questions have been answered. You're getting accolades and appreciation in the chat box, and I thank you so much. We were really looking forward to this. This is a very unique topic, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day and to bring this to us here at the APS. So thank you so much, Jasmine and Bill, and for everyone who has joined us here on Stamp Chat. Friends, if you're looking to learn about more about your collection, the APS Expertising Department is your go-to resource. Begin the process by downloading a certificate application from stamps.org. And remember, APS members receive a discount on this service. So if you're not a member, join us now on stamps.org. Give Apex a try. You will not be disappointed. For more upcoming Stamp Chats, sign up for our free newsletter found anywhere in the stamps.org newsroom. To watch and share past Stamp Chats, subscribe to our APS YouTube channel, where you'll find over 60 presentations from various aspects of our hobby. And if you're not a member of the APS, we invite you to become a member today. Go to stamps.org/join now. Connect, collect, the APS social since 1874. So see you next time on Stamp Chat. Thank you so much.